Hello, my name is Glenn Chumley. I'm your host today in our podcast called Your Vote Doesn't Matter Anyways. In this particular podcast, we're going to discuss the role of advertising in the online world. Yes, advertising. Because if it wasn't for advertising, the online world the way we know it today wouldn't exist. Let me explain what I mean by wouldn't exist. Take the big database companies out there. They fall into categories like Amazon, Google, don't forget Apple. There's many large companies out there whose business model is based on selling a lot of product online, but many of them, such as Facebook as well as Google, derive a lion's share of their revenue from advertising. Most people here may not be aware of the fact that when you actually Google anything online, you put in a keyword that's in the Google browser, and the Google browser serves you up a list of results or responses to your inquiry. When you look at the first page of Google, the first top three responses usually are what's called paid search. These are advertisers who actually pay. They actually bid for the right to be listed 1, 2, and 3 at the very top of the page. And then on the far right-hand side, there might be anywhere from another 8 to 10 advertisers that also pay to have their ads listed there. Google runs a very interesting business model. It's the same as eBay's. It's based on a bid basis, bid advertising. It means they make you compete with other advertisers for the right to be in a top advertising slot on their page. People wonder if this is a good business practice. I have my own feelings about it. Let me tell you how I really feel about it. I think it's really pretty disgusting that we've come to this business model because really what it does, it forces people to compete against each other. I know we live in a competitive society, but it forces advertisers to compete to be in the top spots, and it just becomes more and more expensive to bid on particular keywords with Google, for example. And what we wind up doing is spending a fortune in advertising that's built into the cost of the product. For example, let's just say that you want to have a top listing for cell phones or mobile phones. Google actually will let you compete with other advertisers for the top slots. For example, every time someone puts mobile phone in the browser and upserves a list of companies that are in the mobile phone business, the top slot is paying more per click. That means if someone wants to be in the top position, they may be willing to spend $1 for every time someone clicks on that page or on that ad on page 1 of Google. The second slot might be 95 cents. The third slot might be 90 cents. Fourth slot might be 85 cents, and so on. We are actually trying to buy our way to the top with Google. And every time someone clicks on that ad that we have, it takes them to our web page. Google then chalks up a fee, a $1 fee in the example I just gave you, to the top advertiser there. Well, it might take 50 clicks for them to get actual sale. So if you're paying $1 a click and 50 people click on that ad, it's costing the advertiser $50. It's costing the company advertising, I should say, $50. That money goes to Google. That's how Google makes their money. You're saying what's wrong with the practice? Well, I want you to imagine that you go on Saturday night to your favorite restaurant to get one of your favorite meals, and when you walk into the lobby of the restaurant, it's very busy, and the maitre d' looks at you and says, "Hey, thanks for coming in, but we're real busy tonight. Anything on the dinner menu, because we're in such demand tonight, instead of being what's listed, you have to add a 50% surcharge because it's called We're Real Busy Tonight fee." They also get to the point where they go, well, if you want to sit on the balcony out front overlooking the water, then there's another 75% surcharge that we're going to add to your bill as well. If you want it, take it. If not, we understand. This is really what I consider to be the proselytization of America when we're bidding on the right to do something. This technology is not unique just in, for example, advertising. Let's take another technology company like Uber. I've taken Uber several times. Uh, let's say normally for me to ride from my house to a place where I go frequently, it might cost me $5 on Uber. Not that far. However, on a Friday night when things tend to get busy, my normal $5 ride now costs $10 because they surcharge me because it's a busy time of day. On top of that, let's just say that I'm walking and I decide, maybe I should take a Uber, and it starts to rain outside. And now instead of it costs me $5 or $10 on a Friday night, let's say it is a Friday night and it's raining. Now my fee is $15 to $18. This is what I consider to be a very, very highly immoral way of pricing products. They take advantage of you based on the idea that they know you're in demand. The government's tried to restrict this kind of behavior in the past. Let's just say, for example, we're at in a heat wave, and people are very, very, very hot, and they need cool water to cool themselves down. And instead of selling a bottle of water for $1 because they're in high demand, the store starts selling the bottles for $5. Or there's a hurricane going on down somewhere in the southern states, and a lot of decimation is happening to the stores in the area. So instead of selling a gallon of water at $2, they sell it for $10. The government finds that activity illegal because you're taking advantage of people in a desperate situation. I find a lot of the pricing models online that fall into the same category. Now, in the name of the podcast, Your Vote Doesn't Matter Anyways, what am I really trying to say to you here? I'm trying to say that politics in general, because that's what voting is. Politics is about policy, what we believe is the right way or the wrong way to run a company or run a country, actually. So we put people into political office in this country. There's three main divisions of government. One is the executive, the president, and their selected cabinet. We have Congress, which is divided into the House of Representatives and the Senate. And the third leg, the third branch of government, is the Supreme Court. Every day we have someone talking and squawking about something going on in this country because the idea is to get people to watch or listen to or go online and review information about the topic at hand. Why are people so interested in getting us to watch television or listen to radio or to go online on your smartphone and see what's going on? The simple answer, advertising revenue, dollars. This country is based on advertising. For example, you have a professional quarterback in the NFL. Let's use Tom Brady with the New England Patriots. The guy's not the highest paid quarterback. He should be, but he's not because he'd rather some of the salary be distributed on the team to some other key players that can help him win the Super Bowl. And they've been very successful in doing that, by the way. What is it, 6 Super Bowls they've had? I'm really not 100% sure, but I know it's a lot. Tom Brady, let's just say he makes $15 million a year. Who pays Tom Brady's salary? Well, you might think the New England Patriots pay it. How's that? Well, because the team, they collect revenue, and out of that revenue for running their football franchise, they actually pay athletes. And some of these salaries are very, very high because these guys are in demand, and there's big dollars in professional sports today. But let's just stop and look at it a little deeper. You got Tom Brady making $15 million. The New England Patriots pay Tom Brady that money. How does New England actually get their money? From ticket sales? Well, yeah, people pay to go to the stadium. They drink beer, they eat hot dogs. But what is the real major revenue source? Licensing? Well, that's big. Every time they sell a New England Patriot T-shirt or sweatshirt or any type of gear, they make revenue. I call a licensing agreement where they actually get paid a certain amount for every New England jersey that's sold, let's say. But the lion's share of their dollar comes from TV revenue. TV revenue is massive in the NFL. There's 32 current teams in the NFL. Think about that. 32 teams who currently share as a monopoly roughly $8 billion a year in TV right revenue. That means every time you watch a game on television, the network that is advertising that NFL game, they're paying the NFL a fee to broadcast their game. And the NFL right now is making $8 billion a year distributed equally among 32 teams. That's $250 million per team per year based on television revenue. And by the way, that's growing because there's a new media out there called streaming, live streaming media, where there's all these new streaming services now that want to basically advertise to football watchers, viewers, and to do that, they pay a fee just like all the major networks do to the NFL. They pay that money in advance. How does the network, if they're paying the NFL all this money, how do they make money broadcasting a game? Well, there's roughly 22, 23 advertising slots on every game. Every time you watch an NFL game, whatever your favorite team is, there's probably about 20 to 25 advertisements that are going to be played during that game. And obviously, the network charges money to the advertiser. Let's just say BMW, nice car, pretty pricey. BMW wants to run an ad during a football game. So BMW may pay that network to run that particular ad, let's just say $200,000 to run the ad. So BMW pays the network that's broadcasting the NFL game $200,000 for that 30 or 60-second slot during the game. They obviously have to sell a lot of advertising to make back the money they paid for the rights to broadcast this game. But that's where they're making the money. But how are they getting their money? They're getting it from the advertiser. For this example, BMW. BMW, how in the world did they get the money? Well, it's simple. When they sell a BMW for $58,000, of course, there's the dealer that's involved. He makes a profit from the car as well when he sells it to you. But BMW is allocating a certain amount of that $58,000 to the price of advertising. They might take $5,000 per car and put it into the kitty to help pay the advertising fund for when that NFL game plays and they want to run a BMW ad, then there's the money there. It's allocated into the price of the product. So wait a minute. We've gone this far so far. Who pays BMW? Well, the person that wants to drive a BMW. Let's just say you're feeling good about yourself, you got some money in your pocket, and you've always wanted to own a 5 Series BMW. You go into the dealership, you plop down $57,000, or you go to your bank and get a loan for the $57,000, or the dealer arranges financing. It doesn't matter. There's $57,000 that's going to change hands here, and you're going to be accountable for the full payment of that $57,000 if you want to own that BMW. So you pay the 57, BMW gets their money. They turn that money over to the network who's running their ads. The network then pays the NFL team, their NFL actually, who subdivides that money among the 32 teams. 32 teams take that money and they pay Tom Brady. So who pays Tom Brady's money? You, the individual, the consumer. You, Mr. BMW driver. Congratulations, you're the person who's paying Tom Brady. That's how the world of advertising really, really works. It's based on consumers paying the hidden price of advertising built into the product most of the time. Now, while we're talking about this advertising, I remember as a child, I'm 62 years old, I remember driving down the highway, and there used to be these things called billboards, Billboard, billboard. A billboard was a cute sign alongside of the highway. It had to have a nice picture, something attention grabbing, and a nice headline that can be read at 60 or 70 miles an hour when you might only have a few seconds to read the ad. These billboards used to be everywhere that there was high traffic because someone was trying to get your attention and interest in a product that they were advertising on that billboard. In the world of the internet, in the electronic billboard age, let's call that, your new billboard is called your smartphone. Think about every time that you run that smartphone, every time you turn it on, every time you go to a particular site, any time that you are shopping, or any time that you're running into articles, all that ads, all that advertising that pops in front of your face. What do you think, that's free? You think the people that put those ads there aren't paying the networks or the advertisers dollars to have those ads appear? One of my favorite stories is Mark Zuckerberg, not because I like the guy, but because the story of Facebook in a very short period of time, what this guy amassed in, let's say, 10, 12, 14 years, he's worth $100 billion. Maybe he's worth a little bit less now because his stock has taken a little bit of a hit, but he's pure, unadulterated advertising revenue. Think about Facebook. How do they make their money? Do they charge membership fee? No. Do they charge a subscription fee? No. Anytime someone wants to advertise on Facebook, though, they charge dollars. They charge money. I know about 3 years ago in 2016, Facebook was making about $90 billion a year in advertising. Well, wait a minute. Is that like selling an Apple phone? Do you have to create it? Do you have to build it? Do you have to manufacture it? Well, the platform is what was expensive. Having that platform that Facebook makes available to everybody to go and share their life so everyone can see what you've been doing this past week and all the things about you that you think are important, you put up on Facebook. Notice you don't put the nasty things about yourself on Facebook. It's only the good side that you put up on Facebook. But that Facebook account makes Mark Zuckerberg a ton of money. And it makes people who own Facebook stock a lot of money. Because advertising rules in this country. It's king. So the online world is centered on advertising. And for you to think any differently, you're being naive. Because advertising is what makes everything move. Look at Amazon. I remember 20 years ago when Jeff Bezos, the main shareholder, the CEO, gone through a recent divorce with his wife, gave her $25 billion in stock. So his net worth now is around 100 billion. He used to be a little higher, 130. But he's went through a divorce and he gave, I guess his wife's name is what, Mackenzie, gave her 25 billion. So they're all, happy go lucky now. But Jeff Bezos, when he built the company, he went out and built it. He built a lot of distribution centers that weren't making any money. And people thought he was absolutely out of his mind building these massive 20 football field in size distribution centers. But he had his idea in his head that one day online world was going to replace brick and mortar. He was correct. I mean, Amazon is a monster in this space today. And he makes a ton of money off selling a variety of products. I saw that on Amazon Day, which was a couple of weeks ago, towards the middle of July, I believe it was. Last year, they had sold 75 million items in 2 days online on Amazon. This year, they sold 175 million items in 2 days online. Wrap your head around that. That's a massive amount of product. Do you think that Amazon owns all the product that's sold on Amazon? The key is no, they don't. Their platform invites independent small businesses to come online with them. They'll act as your warehouse if you want them to ship the goods for you. You could list your product on Amazon. They'll help you manage the customer service process for you through their platform. And you can actually ship product through Amazon, ship your raw product into their warehouse. They'll distribute it for you, all for a fee, of course. They're all making money on everything that goes out the door with the Amazon, let's just call it platform name on the top. They're into a variety of many. I can't even tell you the amount of things they're into today. But the one thing that's very important for you to understand about Amazon is that they have a very unfair advantage on everybody. And here's what it is. I'll tell it in a story because you might be able to identify with this. I had a friend that sold product. Let's just say it was golf clubs. Him and his father started the business from scratch. They were doing very well, mail order wise, magazine advertising. And when Amazon started to come along, they started to realize they had a bigger reach with the Amazon name. So they started advertising their golf clubs on Amazon. Business was booming. They were really breaking record sales every year for like 3-4 years. Their sales were growing 30, 40, 50% a year. They were extremely pleased. And then one day, they started to realize that their sales were starting to top off and actually decline. They started to do a little investigative work and they started to find out there was another company selling the exact same golf club that they were selling for 15% less than they were selling it for. And through further research and dedication on their part to find out who their competitor was, they realized it was no one other than Amazon themselves. Amazon went, they applied for a separate corporation. They used a corporation out of Las Vegas to create a name for golf whatever, and they started selling the same product that they were selling from the same manufacturer, competing with them. You see, Amazon knows one thing about you if you're a business selling their product or selling your product online with their platform. They know exactly how much you sell every month. They know what product you sell that's a home run, and they know what product you sell that's a dog. They know exactly what products they should be paying attention to. And so Amazon is into thousands and thousands of products on their own, private labeled, not under Amazon toothpaste or Amazon underwear or Amazon mouthwash. They have their own unique names that they come up with. But most of the time, these are generic products that you're not even aware of that you're buying that are really owned by Amazon themselves. I could talk days again about Amazon. I don't want to at this moment. I just want you to understand that your vote doesn't matter because at the end of the day, what politics is really about, and that's what your vote is. You're voting on policy. What ought to be, what should be, what's the right way that our country should be run. What you're really understanding here, what you should really understand, is that politics and the way it's brought in today is all about getting you disgruntled, upset, to cause tension between the left and the right, and really it's like a rubber band. You pull from one end to the other, and the tension in the middle becomes more pronounced each time. They want you aggravated. They want you concerned about what's going on because they know you'll watch the show, you'll read the article, you'll listen to the radio broadcast. Advertising's working when they can keep your eyes glued to the online screen, your smartphone or your television set, or any other streaming service. It just doesn't matter. Politics in this country is about money. M-O-N-E-Y, money. Am I anti-American? Absolutely not. I'm pro-America. I love the country so much. I think we really have to understand what's going on in this country because I really believe we have to start changing some things in this country if this country is going to be able to heal itself because we're going down a very, very dangerous road right now. The online world is changing the whole makeup of our lives. And the first thing I'll tell you about, in my idea here of what's wrong is that advertising at any cost is really the new buzzword. I mean, stories are made every day in this country and put online to get people's eyeballs on them so they can charge advertisers for the money for the eyeballs that are on that web page or on that television show. And think about it for a moment. I mean, 30 years ago, if you were the editor of a newspaper or if you ran a radio station or a TV station, you had an editor that was responsible for the integrity of the correctness of the information, that it was valid and real, not made up, not a lie, not a bunch of crap, that it was real, verified information. Those days have basically evaporated. Matter of fact, some companies now want to put out a false story just to get your attention, and then they'll do a retraction in a month or a week or 3 days later on the back page where no one's going to read it. And they want to sit there to be first. It's no longer important to be right. What's important is to be first with the story. And there's a cause and effect to this. I mean, it causes a lot of stress in our society. It creates a lot of um, a lot of misery to people mentally because a lot of these fake news stories that come out, a lot of these untrue stories that come out. Okay, advertising. We're spending money on it. And all that money that's being spent is buried inside the cost of the advertising side of the product. And that's one thing we have to always keep in mind here. When I say your vote doesn't matter politically, what I'm trying to get you to understand is that every time they're trying to grab your attention because, oh, so-and-so said this, or did you hear about what's going on the southern border, and what are we doing to these poor refugees that come across? Look, I'm a product. I think I mentioned before. My mother was an immigrant, came from Greece. My great-grandfather, my grandfather actually, his father, my great-grandfather, came from England during the land grab at the end of the Civil War. So I come from a background of immigrants. I'm very pro-America. I'm not anti-America by any stretch of the imagination. I think this is the greatest country that we can live in. I've been around the world a few times. I've been in some really crazy places. And every time I've been everywhere, I always look back and say, regardless of everything, of all the problems we have in this country, I'd still rather be here. I'd still rather be in this country right now because it's still the best option to live on any place on this planet. I'd rather live right here in this country. So, let me tell you the basics of politics today. Because when I say your vote doesn't matter anyway, the goal of a political message and all the politicians there, and by the way, why do people get into politics? I don't know. I guess you have to interview every person who's a politician, but I'll tell you one of the main reasons people get into politics. It's called money. Again, M-O-N-E-Y. I followed Barack Obama. I voted for Barack Obama way back in 2008. When he first ran, I voted for Barack Obama. And then in 2012, I voted for Barack Obama a second time. Now, was I in love with everything that he did? No. Was I in love with a lot of the things that he did? Yes, I certainly was. I think he had a unique conscience about people, and I like what he tried to do. At the same time, I think he weakened us in other aspects like international policy, but I won't go into any of that. But I want to talk about Barack Obama in 2008. When he became president of the United States, maybe some of you will remember, he gave the speech, I think it was in 2004, which brought him national attention. He was a young senator at the time out of Chicago or out of Illinois, and he was flat broke and busted when he was running for the presidency in 2008. People might think he had a lot of money set aside from something. No, the truth is he had no money. And when he left the White House 8 years later, he's worth over $100 million. And I don't mean this is a made up number. He's made a lot of money through his name and through his recognition of politics. His wife, Michelle Obama, every time she writes a book, it's a bestseller. If anyone can make serious dollars writing a book, it's the Obama team. Both Mr. and Mrs. President and First Lady Michelle, they have a winning combination when it comes to writing everything. People love them. They say in 2020, is there any person that could beat, let's just say, Donald Trump? Well, there's a lot of people who say one person who could definitely beat him hands down would be Michelle Obama because she's that well received and she's loved in this country still. And I'm not making any point about being a Republican or Democrat, none. But what's interesting to me is how a politician who was there to serve the people after 8 years leaves the Oval Office with $100 million. That to me is something that should raise eyebrows across this country. Are we really doing the right thing? Is our political system really set up the right way where people can enrich themselves to $100 million because of what? Because they have a platform to stand on. I'm not saying what's right or wrong. I just say along the line here, we have to really think about politics. Going back 100 years ago to be a politician, if I was a owner of a local hardware store in Podunk, Iowa, some small little rinky-dink town, and at the end, if I wanted to go serve my country and become a congressman for the House of Representatives and serve my country for a couple of years down in Washington, I wasn't a full-time politician. Being a politician was like my civic duty. I went there to help structure policy that will guide this country along the right path and to right any wrong that might be in place and to see the weakness of certain laws and policies we might have in place and try to get them, put back on even keel, try to get the right policies in place depending on what I thought was right for this country. The fact is, there weren't lifetime politicians. Most of the politicians that were there were people that were working Joes and Janes. They were out there trying to make a living for themselves and went to Washington to do good for a few years. Today, the whole game's changed. You got people that are politicians that spend $50 million of their own money to get elected. I mean, they really want to be in the power seat here in this country. And I think we have to weigh that out. We have to weigh out exactly our political system here. Because politically, the reason why I don't think your vote doesn't matter anymore, because politics is really about one word. And I use this word, I want you to think about it when I give it to you. Concern. Every politician out there wants you to be concerned about a certain topic. They talk about, let's use the border wall. Did you hear about the unsavory conditions in these camps down along the southern border with Mexico, about where these detainees are being held? 100,000 people last month, in the month of July, tried to come across that border that were detained. We're not set up to deal with 100,000 people trying to come across our border. I'm going to tell you that right now. We don't have the facilities for that. And there's a lot of crowdedness, a lot of filthiness, a lot of insanitary situations there. We're making the best of what we have down there. And I'm not saying that they don't have a right to come to this country and seek a better life for themselves. But I sit there and I have to listen to the same nonsense. And let me tell you, don't be offended when I say this, but I hear the story about a young child that came with their parent who gets detained and develops a fever and winds up dying in the concentration camp. It's sad. It's tragic. But do you know how many kids are dying on the 3,000-mile journey all the way up from Central America through the Honduras, through Guatemala, all the way up to Mexico, all the way up to our own border here. Do you know how many kids are losing their life? Do you know how many women are raped every single month? I won't sit here and give you a ridiculous stat, but I'm going to tell you that it is mind-boggling the amount of human suffering that is being done to the people traveling the 3,000 to 4,000 miles to come to the border here in the USA. I care about people. The whole idea of politics, every time they give you a message, they want you to be concerned. And I watch it. I watch the progressive Democrats today saying we have a moral obligation. I agree, we have a moral obligation. I know it's tragic when a young child dies needlessly. It's sad when you go down there and you do inspection and you have these guys, the guys that are, the gals there that are border patrol, and they call them Nazis. What are you kidding? Seriously, they're a Nazi. Do you know what Nazis really did? Do you have any idea how many people died in Europe because of the Nazi movement in Germany? My mother lived through World War II. A lot of bad things happened to my mom when she was a 13, 14-year-old girl. This is right when the war started in Europe. Don't sit there and try to sit there and compare our system here with a bunch of freaking Nazis, okay, that literally would kill thousands and thousands of people at any drop of the pen. And you're trying to compare our border guards to Nazis? What's wrong with you freaking people? Seriously, take a look at what you're doing. Now, let me talk about concern. I know why you tell the story, because we should be caring about people that suffer. I understand that. We all should be caring. In my travels, I'm going to use the continent of Africa. I spent 2 years going back and forth to Africa 8 times. I've been to about 7 different African countries. And here's what I want to say about sub-Sahara Africa. This is not a made-up statistic. 3.2, 3.3 million children under the age of 5 starve to death in Africa every year. Malnourished. 3.3 million. Wrap that thought in your head for a moment and compare it to the one child that died in a quote concentration camp, according to some of these crazy people we have here. Concentration camp. It's not a concentration camp. It is a facility that we tried to put together as best as we can to deal with the 100,000 people that are flooding our borders. We're not the only country in the world that has immigrants trying to get in. We're not the only country in the world that has immigrants trying to get into our border. But I want you to compare the 10, 15, 20 deaths that may have occurred so far with the 3 million deaths that occur in Africa because of malnourishment and nutritional problems in Africa. Let me ask you, all you who greatly care about people, what are you doing about that problem? But wait a minute, it's Africa. Why should we care about them? Well, if we're all God's children, we should care about everybody, not just the people trying to come across our border. Politicians always have a motive, and I'll tell you what the biggest motive is for the people coming across the border. They want a better life. They want a better life. 1 out of 3 people on the planet make under $1 a day. The middle third, 1 out of 3, make between $1 and $2 a day. And if they got into this country and wound up making $250 a month in food stamp programs or any kind of government assistance, they thought they died and went to heaven. To think that everyone that wants to come into this country is here for one reason, that's political refugee, that they're being prosecuted or persecuted because of a religious belief, or because they're being threatened by gangs. I know there's gangs out there that are doing crazy things. I know people are trying to get out and get away. I wonder what the traffic at the border really would be if there wasn't a social program waiting in this country for them when they got here. How many people would cross the border every day and make this journey? How many would pay $5,000, $10,000 to a coyote to bring them across the border illegally and spend the next 5 to 10 years of their life trying to work off that dollar if there was no money payout because of social programs in our country? Now, am I saying take away the money? I didn't say that. But a lot of the people that come into this country come here for a better life. And the bottom 40% of our society lives off the government subsidy program. The people that come into this country live off government assistance. And that's a big nut. And it costs us a lot of money every year to provide that. But I want to go back just to the African example I gave you. 3.2, 3.3 million children starving to death every year. Where's the big outrage among the social democrats for all the people crying about what's going on in the border? Why isn't anyone crying for Africa? Seriously. 13.5% of our population is black, Afro-American descendants. What is that, about 45 million, maybe 330 million Americans? 13.5%. Let's just call it, I'm not expert in math. Let's say it's 43 million people here that are black. There's a lot of people in this world that are suffering. And if you really, really want to help people, don't use the pathetic example of just one or two people that die in a camp down in southern Texas as the reason why we're an immoral society. That's bull. Our country gives tons of money to African nations. We give a ton of money every year to AID, Agency for International Development. We give tons of help to the rest of the world. Don't paint us as some kind of moron in some kind of uncivilized society because we let one child die. It wasn't by intention. I can tell you that right now. But the Democrats are very simple in their whole orientation about getting people across the border. They know, hands down, without a doubt, it's been proven, 75% of the people that cross the border illegally will eventually vote Democrat when they come here. And that's all it's about. It's a power grab. It's a power grab. That's what they're doing. They want to get the vote. And at the end, they want to get the vote because the vote equals power. I'm not against the Democratic platform. I'll be upfront with you. I'm a registered Democrat. The Democratic Party has been my party since the very beginning. I voted Republican, though, several different times in my lifetime. I probably am more of a fiscal Republican and a social Democrat when it comes to public policy. But at the end, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Everything costs money. Our president, Donald Trump, just approved another $3 to $4 billion in the budget through 2023. Folks, we already owe $21 trillion. We pay interest on that money. To owe $24 trillion, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news here. We don't print money in our solution that goes away. We pay interest on that money. The money that we have and we use that's in excess in our budget. If we're only bringing in $3 trillion and we're spending $4 trillion, we got a shortfall. We have to borrow money. But that can only last so long before the goose that lays the golden egg dies. It will happen. It's not going to be if it's going to happen. It's going to be a question when it's going to happen. We've got to give our fiscal house in order because it's costly. And every time we pay interest on the money we've borrowed, we are actually having to cut back on other social programs that people sorely need. So, at the end of the day, when I say your vote doesn't matter, they try to make you concerned with the world problems. Because if you don't, and you're not concerned, then are you really a good person in their eyes? That's what they want you to believe. It's almost a guilt trip. If you don't believe that this is something that should affect did you hear about what happened to the one passenger on the plane? She's one of 110,000 people a week that travel on this airline, but one was mistreated. And oh my God, the indignity of the whole process. You have 110,000 people that flew first class service, loved every minute of the flight, but one person got irritated and they got to talk about it. The real problem we have in this country, in all honesty, is social media. Social media, yeah, I said it. It's nothing but negative garbage coming out of the most vile, negative, pathetic minds. And I know not everything's negative in social media, but I'm really saying to you, some of the garbage and crap that comes out of people's heads should be censored. It shouldn't be allowed. It affects you. If you don't think what you listen to every day and what actually enters your ears every day doesn't affect you in the long run, then you're naive. You're absolutely naive. I remember going to the paper or to my online account, my AOL account, and I read a story. Lady butchers two of her neighbor's kids with a machete. And I'm like, oh my God, that's terrible. And then I go on to read, it's some tiny little village out in the middle of the Himalayas on the border of India somewhere. And they're talking about that being a story that me in America, I have to know about this. Why do I need to know about this? The world's always been filled with evil. But today we make it our living, like it's an Olympic event, to talk about all the negativity. Oh my God, did you hear about this? Oh my God, did you hear about that? There's always been negativity in the world. But never have we had a magnifying glass on it the way we have with social media. And yes, there's a lot of boneheads out there with their own YouTube account that think they say something that's worthwhile, that think they have something that only they understand and the whole world needs to know. I mean, when you really, really listen to some of these YouTube channels, you lose your faith in people very quickly because there's some really, really messed up people in this world. I'm not going to tell you what percentage I think of the world's messed up, but it's a lot more messed up people than normal people. That's what I honestly believe. And social media is not helping our mental health in this country at all. At the end of the day, the politicians want you to be outraged. They want you to say, "Oh my God, that's terrible. Oh yeah, I'm concerned about that." But you know what? In life, we can be concerned about a lot of things. But what is it that you truly can control? Oh, they get you to believe that your vote's going to control everything. Wrong. Your vote doesn't matter. You really think it matters at this stage of your life. If you really want to do something with your life, do something you can control. The vote gives you a little bit of power in your own head, but it's not realistic. You're not going to live the good life through a politician doing some work for you. Control is really what you need in your life, not concern. I'll give you a simple example of this. Let's just say I have a very dear friend of mine that needs open heart surgery. It's a serious operation. It's a very dangerous operation. And he's a family man. He's got his mom, dad, he's got his kids, he's got his spouse, and he has to go in for surgery. And I go to the hospital because I'm one of his longtime friends, and I'm there right before surgery. I wish him the best. I stay with his family. I say a prayer for him. I'm there with him because I really care, and I want to offer my support and my, all the good word and encouragement that I can to his family. I'm concerned about my friend's well-being. But there's another person in the hospital who's putting on a gown and putting on these sanitary gloves because he's going to eventually hold a scalpel in his hand, or her, either one, and they're going to do open heart surgery on my friend. It's the physician, the surgeon, that's going to do the surgery. That's the person that has control over the outcome. I might be concerned about my friend's welfare, but it's the surgeon that has control over the outcome. And at that stage, all I want to say to you is this. Politics is all about getting you concerned about everything, getting you agitated about everything. Because why shouldn't we be agitated? Because, we're all people. We care about things. And yeah, it does make me mad when someone's disrespectful or someone, treats someone improper or someone who is just completely innocent is maltreated. That would make me upset. But at the end, all these politicians do and all these TV stations do is talk these stories to get your eyeballs on the channel so they can charge advertising dollar. I'm not going to go into all the networks out there, but I'll just tell you a couple tidbits. You may or may not find it interesting or not. You take Fox News. I watch it on a rare occasion, but when I do watch it, let's just say it's Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity gets paid roughly $20 million a year to be a news opinion broadcaster on Fox News. He also has a syndicated nationwide radio show that makes him another $30 million a year. That man makes $50 million a year talking to you every day. I can see why politics is important to him. His pockets get lined with money, with the green stuff. By the way, how much do you make yourself watching Sean Hannity? Nothing. Close your eyes. What do you see? Nothing. That's what you make watching Sean Hannity. What does Sean Hannity make when you watch? Tons of money. His pockets are flooded with cash. So many of these broadcast celebrities that are on TV. Entertainment, huge market. Politics, sports. Politics, sports, movies, entertainment. Huge, huge, huge market in this country. Why? Advertising. Brings a lot of dollars. And if it doesn't bring advertising, it brings ticket sales like movies. People pay by subscription or they can pay by the ticket for that kind of entertainment. Your vote doesn't matter. I think what matters is you as a person. Do things that you have control over. Become the surgeon that does the open heart surgery, and that way you have more control over outcome. But don't be the idle person on the sideline who's just concerned, because at the end, you're not really impacting a lot of lives. I can tell you what, you're not saving 3.3 million children in Africa that are starving to death, all because you're concerned about what's going on in the southern border down there with the wall. There's a lot to be concerned on this planet. There's a lot of people in need in this planet. There's a lot of things going on this planet that we need real human resources to lend a hand to help. I'm not a negative person. I'm not trying to be negative, but I think when people, take you down the primrose path and try to sell you on a course of action that really only benefits them financially and does so very little for you, I just want to point it out to you so you can really think about if this is really the right way for me to be doing what I do every day in this country. Some people spend 2, 3 hours every day listening to this political nonsense. Can you imagine what 2 to 3 well-directed hours could do to help a young child, maybe in your community, that doesn't have a parent, or maybe they come from a single-parent family and they need some direction? Maybe they need the most important thing, influence. How about just an encouraging word? You know how many people out there right now, their situation could change dramatically if all they had was an encouragement, an encouraging word from the right person, someone who cared a little bit? Or you can sit there and play the political nonsense and write these nasty, nasty tweets among people and talk about how everyone's a jerk and everyone's an idiot because they have this ideology in their head. It's not solving any of the world's problems. That's what I want to tell you. You want to do something? Get in control. Go solve something. Go make a difference in someone's life. Stop sitting there and acting like you're a better person because you care, because that's all you do. You're caring, but you're not controlling anything and you're not affecting anything by that. I understand the value of thinking the right things, but at the end, I want you to understand the people that perpetuate these kinds of advertising schemes on you are the people making all the money. They're giving you all the grief. And at the end, what do they leave you? They're not filling your pockets up with anything. Be more selective with your time. That's probably what I want to say. And yes, again, thank you for listening. And again, I'll reiterate it. Your vote doesn't matter anyways. Do something else. Do something else more important. Get out and make a difference on your own. Don't live your life through politics and politicians. It's a hollow, empty barrel. Thank you for listening. I'm Glenn Chumley, and this is the podcast, Your Vote Doesn't Matter Anyways.